Thanks, Misty. Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone online. Everyone in person, you all seem so far away. Hello. I remember when we were close. Now everyone's, as always, just kind of check around, especially if you're at home, that you're in a safe space. I slid on a book today and it didn't feel really good. I thought my house was picked up, but obviously it was not. And then I almost tripped over a dog too. So just kind of look around, move things away. And we'll start either sitting in a really comfortable crisscross applesauce like shape. You could sit with your legs out in front of you, or you could lie back. Okay. So most importantly, you're finding a shape that lets your body relax for maybe 2 to 5 minutes. So we're going to relax, but not to the point of falling asleep, okay? So as you find your comfy, supportive shape, give yourself a moment to pause. Intentionally slowing down. And checking in with yourself. Checking in, how are you feeling physically? How are you feeling energetically? You might check in emotionally. And reminding yourself that the next 45 minutes are your practice. So if something doesn't feel comfortable or supportive or safe, you don't have to do it. You can back out anytime. We're here to support ourselves and to remind ourselves that we know ourselves better than anyone else. So knowing that we know ourselves, take a moment to settle and feel your body breathing. If you're in the space, it's practicing with that mask on, feeling the breath support you. Taking only the amount of air we really need. Feeling your inhale, feeling your exhale. And I don't know about anyone else, but I really notice in my body, especially when I'm wearing a mask, I tend to mouth breathe more. And I also tend to chest breathe, bringing a lot more air up into my chest. And both of those, mouth breathing and chest breathing, are signs of more anxiety in the breath. So if that is something you're feeling, one, know you're not alone. And then we're all going to put a hand on our chest and a hand on our lower belly area. And just give ourselves a little time to connect the breath between the hands. So if you are someone who, similar to me, tends to mouth breathe with their mask on, chest breathe a little more, draw some awareness to your lower hand. Just allow the breath into your lower hand. We can all benefit by understanding and feeling the breath a little lower in the rib cage, feeling and understanding how your diaphragm moves. And so diaphragmatic breathing helps us find more calm, helps us relax, helps us find a little more ease. When we're breathing diaphragmatically, the flow of the breath is like this. When you inhale, your diaphragm slides down. You'll feel your belly get a little lifted, a little full. And when you exhale, your diaphragm slides up and your belly releases, where your navel draws down. So we use the rhythm, the feeling of the belly breath to help us calm down, to help us relax. And then we're going to bring your hands to your lower ribs and just coming out to the side body. Feeling the ribs. As you inhale, the ribs get wide. And as you exhale, the ribs draw down and in. You might feel that with the next few breaths in relationship to the diaphragm, big breathing muscles. So when you exhale, your ribs draw down and in. When you inhale, your ribs get wide. When you exhale, your navel draws down, your ribs knit. When you inhale, your navel goes up, your ribs get wide. And just taking a few more breaths with this awareness. Now we're going to challenge ourselves. When you take your exhale, feeling your ribs knit down and in, and your navel draw down slightly, we're going to hold the lower abdominals there firm and take an inhale. And an exhale. So as you exhale, letting your navel settle down without forcing your low back into the floor. So we're not physically moving bones. We want to feel tone and strength in your lower abdominal. So if you had like a cummerbund or a corset on, we want to create that strength and feeling of tone through your exhale. And then challenge ourselves to still feel the breath moving the rib cage. So more tone in your cummerbund area, corset-like area. Still movement in your rib cage. 3 breaths. And then checking back in. How do you feel physically, energetically? I feel much more comfortable now breathing in my mask. For me personally, I don't feel myself over breathing in my chest quite as much. Notice how you feel. We're going to bring your hands up towards the ceiling and bring them back behind your head. So stretch up and then lift your head and interlace your hands behind your head. Let your elbows draw up towards the ceiling. Coming back to that feeling of the ribs. So as you exhale, take a couple moments to really feel the ribs draw down and in. And when your ribs have really drawn down and in, that's going to be your cue to start to lift your head and maybe your shoulders up, doing a little sit up. And then you'll lower all the way back down. Exhale when you're ready, feel the ribs. From that feeling of the ribs drawing down, like a teeter-totter, your head and maybe your shoulders lift up. And then lowering back down. If you want more challenge or a different challenge, try not to imprint or push your low back into the floor. So when your head is down on the floor, you can feel the back of the shoulders nice and wide down through the ribs and through the hips. So then as you feel the ribs with the exhale draw down and in, and you start to lift the shoulders, we're intentionally going really slowly so we can feel the upper back rounds, but the lower back stays in neutral. And then we can lower back down. You can keep your feet on the floor or bring your legs together and squeeze your shins, squeeze your knees. 3 more. Exhale. From the exhale and the ribs drawing down, the shoulders can lift up. Pause again. Try not to imprint, try not to change the shape of the low back. And then release down. 2 more on your own. Moving at your own pace so you can understand that feeling that you're moving your upper back in flexion and extension, and you're stabilizing your low belly to stabilize your low back. Excellent. And then you can lower all the way down. Let your arms come down and take 3 or 4 breaths. Great. And then we're going to roll on over and come over to tabletop. And give yourself a couple of breaths to build your strong table. So checking in with your wrists. If you have kind of cranky wrists, remember you can walk your hands out in front, which won't put as much flexion. So you can walk your hands in front of your shoulders. You can start by putting your hands way back underneath your shoulders, okay? So the distance of the hand from the shoulder is going to be different for each of us, but all of us will be very similar in trying to line up your ears with your shoulders. Draw your ribs up in line with your hips. And then feeling and noting your body in space. A little bit like how we started, you have big back lungs. Let's take 3 breaths, noticing what you feel in the back of your lungs. And then let's wake up the back of your shoulders. So we're going to push into the floor quite a bit, locking your elbows. So you can lock your elbow here if you feel safe doing that, okay? And if you don't feel safe locking your elbow, you just want to make sure your arm stays really straight, no bending, okay? And then you're going to push your sternum. You're going to take your sternum, your breastbone, and kind of push it up, up, up. And when you push the sternum up, see if you can feel your shoulder blades on your back protract so they get wide, almost like they were sliding off your back. And then from this shape, you're going to squeeze your shoulder blades together, and your sternum will feel like it's dropping a little bit or coming closer to the floor. So we're going to do these scapular like push-ups, pulling your shoulder blades apart, protraction, rounding. That's when you're pulling your breastbone up. And then retraction, pulling or squeezing your shoulder blades together. Strengthening the muscles underneath the shoulder blades that help support our tabletops, our down dogs, our planks. 2 more. You feel what you can't see. You don't get to see your shoulder blades. And then come back and build your tabletop. Now, when you build your tabletop from your shoulder blades, right shoulder blade, left shoulder blade, we might say they're almost like pinned on your back. Want to feel the shoulder blades pressing down, just like your hands are pressing into the mat, into the floor. Your shoulder blades are similar, pressing down into the back of the ribs. Take a couple just nice full breaths and see if you can feel the lungs and the ribs rise up to meet the shoulder blade. If you're somebody who tends to hike the shoulders up into your ears, you might also feel a little more like, oh, I can soften the shoulders down out of my ears. If you want a lot more challenge, float your knees off the floor and hold the shape for about 5 breaths. You can always bring your knees down, or you can lift your hips up and go back to downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, coming forward, back to table, knees come down. One time, reset your table. Shoulder blades on your back. Breathe into the shoulder blade, lift your knees, push up and back, downward facing dog. Bending your knees, straightening your knees, maybe like a little downward facing dog squat, just kind of warming up into it. When you feel your down dog, you can always bend your knees and really push the weight back off the wrists. Try and let your head hang 3 breaths. And then with your next exhale, we'll figure out how to walk your hands and feet together. And we'll come up really nice, strong and slow, and hang out in your standing mountain. Give yourself a moment to feel, notice, oh, we're standing. 3 breaths. And then we'll step your feet nice and wide. So if you're in the room, if you want to look this way, you can step wide towards the lake and enjoy the lake view. Heels will come in a little bit, toes will go out. And we're just going to warm up and down 3 sumos. So not a really big warm up, but it gets your ankles and your knees and your hips going. Sweet. And then when you come back up, let's bring your arms out in front of you. And see if you can see through your back into your shoulder blades. So remember your shoulder blades back here, you don't get to see them, but you get to feel them. So as you take your arms out nice and wide like a T, your shoulder blades retract. As you take your arms out in front of you like a handshake, they protract, they get wide. So feeling the shoulder blades sliding on your back, keeping your spine and your rib cage really strong and steady. So as you open your arms, try not to push the chest forward. And then up to you if you want to turn this into a deeper sumo squat, going up and down 5 times. Can you do this more from the feeling of your breath? Your breath is the cue to move. And then the next time you have some bend in your knee, we'll pause. And we'll bring the arms back out in front, double handshakes. And see if you can feel your shoulder blades slide up your back as you reach your arms up. Sliding the shoulder blades up, ribs drawing down, navel drawing back, nice and strong. We'll go a little lower in your squat if you want that challenge, 3 breaths. Exhale, we're gonna bring your hands to your hips and straighten your legs. Sweet, step both feet together. Let your arms hang. Come back and notice your own personal experience for 3 breaths. How are you feeling? Breathing, noticing. Right. With an exhale, arms swing out to come up. Shoulder blades go out and up. Bend your knees and fold forward. Remember, you don't have to touch the floor. Inhale, chest lifts. Exhale, step on back, build your downward facing dog. Finding your own downward facing dog, take your time. Let's bend the knees a little bit and push the hip creases back, getting some length through your spine. A little more challenging. Exhale, knees come forward and float, floating tabletop. Skip it. If floating tabletop is too much for you, it's all right. Take care of yourself. Self-compassion to let your knees come down. Takes just as much strength internally, mentally to find table or a floating table and back to downward facing dog. Find your dog for 3 breaths. Exhale, walk your hands and feet together. Come all the way on up to standing. Arms come down by your side. Enjoy 3 breaths all to yourself. With your next exhale, stepping your feet wide. All right, you can face me or the lake if you're in the room. Left leg rolls in, right leg rolls out. Go about heel to heel. So bringing your hands onto your pelvis. So right hand on that right hip bone, left hand on that left hip bone. Let's just kind of lift the front of the hips up a little bit. So keeping the front of the hips lifted, we're going to bend your right knee and straighten your right knee 3 times with your breathing. So moving again from your breath rhythm. Inhale, bend. Exhale, straighten. Next time your knees bent, pause and bring your arms out in front of you again with that double like arm handshake. Great. From the shoulder blades, can you feel what you can't see? We're going to straighten the right leg, open the arms out wide like a T. Exhale, bend, do your double arm handshake. Good. From your breath, 2 more. Moving those shoulder blades on your back, stretching through the chest. Sweet. Next time your right knee's bent, your arms are out in front of you. Pause. Feeling your legs nice and strong. Lift the front of the hips up again and slide your shoulder blades up your back. So you're going to slide your shoulder blades, lift your arms. Exhale, tip over, right elbow to right knee. Side angle. 3 breaths, you got this. Exhale, come all the way on up. Both arms come up, straightening your right leg. Both feet face forward, hands to your hips. Great, heels come in slightly. Toes go out. Bringing your arms back out in front, double handshake, arm shake. We go back up and down in that sumo squat, moving the shoulder blades on your back. All right, so a little deeper challenge. Next time your arms are out in front of you, pause and bend your elbows and bring your hands onto your lower ribs. So coming back, can you feel when you exhale your lower ribs knit down and in? So we want to try and keep the ribs down and in as you take your arms out wide like T's. So when you take your arms out wide like T's, your shoulder blades are retracting and drawing together, pulling your pec, your chest muscles wide. Okay, if you're really tight in your chest, you've got to use more abdominal so you're not pushing your chest forward. Okay, I'll say it again. Your arms are out wide, which causes your shoulder blades to retract or pinch together, which pulls on your chest pec. Okay, when that pec muscle gets pulled, it's going to pull your chest forward. We're trying to keep the ribs down and in. So keep your core strong. Good. Then take your arms up to the ceiling. Ribs draw down and in, long spine. Reach up. Good. Exhale, hands come to your hips. Right leg rolls in. Left leg rolls out. Sweet. Bending and straightening your left knee 3 times. Trying to keep the front of the hips a little more lifted. Next time your left knee's bent, pause, come do your double arm handshake. Remember the rib feeling? We just did it nice and slow in that sumo. Same idea as you open and close the arms. See if you can go slow enough you can understand just the shoulder blade and ribs connect. Shoulder blades move, ribs stay still. Try not to push your rib cage forward. Good. Next time your left knee's bent, your arms are in your handshake, arm shake, stretch the arms up. Awesome. Tip over left elbow to left knee. And pause for 3 breaths. Good. Exhale, come all the way on up. Bring both arms up, straighten both legs. Good. Try to keep your arms up to work your shoulders, and you're going to turn to face the front of your mat. Take a full body stretch. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lift your chest. Exhale, step back. Build your downward facing dog. Give yourself a couple moments to really set up and build that downward facing dog. Looking here out into the room, we could probably bend our knees a little bit and then feel your hip creases draw back. How can you get a little more length in your low back? Long through your mid back. If you had a backpack on, that part of your spine would be really nice and long. Exhale, a little more challenge. Let your knees come down, floating table. Or maybe tabletop for 5 breaths. So you're either floating, pushing down. Good, back to downward facing dog. Exhale when you're ready, hands and feet walk together. We come all the way on up, take a full body stretch. Arms come down. Give yourself about 5 breaths this time. Come back. Using 5 breaths to help you just recenter, reground. And then shifting the weight a little bit into your right leg. You're just going to lift your left heel and catch your balance. All right, so when we shift the weight, you can keep your heel up. Careful that you don't push out your right butt cheek. All right, so we're going to try and feel your bum going more straight back. So you might even feel like your hip creases are going straight back. Okay, so your Left heel can lift. You can pick up your left toes a little bit and then check. We don't want to push out too much, okay? So again, ear, shoulder, rib, hip. If your hip's out, we're not in alignment. And then we're going to step your left foot all the way back and bring your hands to your hips. So make sure you feel really strong and supported, steady through your legs. Hands on the front of the hips, you can lift the front hips up. Press the left thigh bone back and get some stretch in that left hip flexor. So you want your back heel lifted. Okay, so it's a little bit of a balance. And then like we've been doing, feel the shoulder blades slide up. And then up to you, how far do you want to bend your right knee? That's really up to you. Maybe it's a little bit, maybe it's not much. Finding just the right balance. So you might shift the weight a little bit, front to back. Soften through your eyes and your jaw. See if you can soften in your chest and take 2 more breaths. The transition is that we're going to step forward and balance. So you're going to bring your left knee up. Find a tree pose, bring your palms together. Adjust, adapt, support. 3 breaths. And then with an exhale, bringing your left foot to the floor, arms to the side. Exhale, arms flow out to come up. Bend your knees if you need to fold over. Long, strong folding. Inhale, chest lifts. Exhale, back to downward facing dog, or you can skip it and just come on up to standing mountain meditation. So in this down dog, you could stay in your down dog, maybe come to a floating table, or maybe try your plank pose. In all of these, we need strong back shoulders, and we're pushing ourselves away from the earth. So you are pushing the earth, you are pushing down and working against gravity for 2 more breaths. And then we meet back in downward facing dog. If you're tired, bend your knees, come back to a child's pose or a tabletop. 3 breaths. And then when you're ready, feeling your exhale will be the cue to step your hands and feet together. And your inhale will be the cue to come all the way on up. And we'll exhale, arms will come down. And then again, we take 5 breaths for ourselves. Coming back to our experience, what we notice. Maybe feeling the breath moving through our bodies. And then shifting the weight over into the left foot. Lifting your right heel. Remember, when you do that, try not to push your left butt cheek out. Try to keep that in. So we're using these lateral hip muscles along with your core. Good. And then we have to step that right foot all the way back and build that high lunge nice and slow. So it's a balance the whole way back. Right? If you're at home and you need a wall or a chair, grab what you need. I'm going to lift up through the front of the pelvis. Press your right thigh bone back. Keep your right heel lifted. Coming back to the basics, are you pushing your belly button or your chest forward? Try to keep your navel kind of slightly drawing back, your ribs down and in. Shoulder blades slide up to take the arms up. And then coming into feeling your balance, to feeling your body holding itself up with your breath, with your body, with your muscles. 3 breaths. Maybe you can soften in your face or your jaw. Remember the transition, we step forward and we build a tree. When you build your tree, you could keep your toes down or float them up. Hands could be at your hips or maybe fingertips come together. Just like the trees outside blowing, they're not still. You can feel the breath move. You can feel your body moving with the breath, just like the wind moves the trees outside. With your next exhale, right foot comes down, arms come down. Exhale, arms sweep up to come nice and high. Bend your knees, fold forward. All the way back one more time, downward facing dog. Maybe you bend your knees and push your hip creases back. Maybe you let your head hang and look back to get some neck head stretch. A little more challenging, floating table or straight arm plank. Just physically more challenging. And then we'll all lower down to our knees and rebuild your table. So paying attention again to your wrists, if you need to, maybe walk your hands out a little bit in front of your chest, more. So letting your ribs and your core resist gravity. You're gonna try and keep your ears in line with your shoulders. I'm gonna slowly start to pull the chest forward. You're gonna pull your chest a little bit forward of your hands. And then you're gonna push back. So then the shoulders press way back, the hips press way back. So as you move forward and back, try and remember to feel that resistance to gravity pulling you into the floor, okay? So you're pushing down. As you pull your hips back, it might feel like your arms are pushing forward. And then as you come to table, it's like you're pulling your body forward. And you might start to come in to a little bit of like an upward facing dog feel. And you might go back to what might feel more like a child's pose. You're just gonna warm up through this, kind of like you're flossing your hips and your shoulders and your spine. You might notice you can incrementally add range of motion. We'll do 2 more. If there's anywhere along the movement that's really interesting, you're curious, feels super good, hang out there. And then we'll meet back in either that up dog or back in that child's pose. You'll challenge yourself in one of those places to really pause and come into your body for the breath. So if you're coming forward into the up dog, you're pushing down, lifting the chest, knitting the ribs. Pubic bone can drop towards the floor. Feeling your breath in whatever shape you're in. And then we meet back in table. We cross the legs and bring the legs out in front of us and roll all the way onto our backs. How's everybody doing? All right, the sun's almost out. It's coming, it's trying. And then we'll roll down nice and slowly, bending your knees, bringing your feet to the floor. Just let the body find some physical stillness for a moment. Come back to your breathing. You might notice you feel the breath in the chest and the lower ribs. You feel the breath out in the lateral lower ribs. Three breaths. And let's stretch out your low back a little bit. Just take your left leg straight out on the floor and bring your right knee all the way up into your chest, hugging your knee way up. You might feel your low back go down into the floor a little bit. That's okay. I'm just going to add a little weight to your left leg. You could hold your right leg with your right arm and take your left arm overhead, reaching it back. And take 3 mindful exhales here. And when you feel your third exhale, you can switch sides. Drawing your left knee way up into your chest. Might feel your low back coming into the floor a little more. That's okay here. Right arm can come overhead. Just noting your own personal experience. And with an exhale, letting your left leg come back down. Your right arm lifts. We can bring the hands to your hip bones and we'll bend both knees. And then we'll push your low belly into the floor, which will press your low back down, and then we'll press your pubic bone down. So finding and feeling pubic bone to belly button, a little bit of rocking here. Can feel how the hips move underneath your hands. And then if you'd like, when you press your belly button down, you can start to slowly peel your low back up into a little bit of a low, strong bridge and lower back down. And just 2 more like that. Going at your own pace. More like you're just moving through your vertebrae, creating some movement, some fluidity. And then after a total of 3 bridges, we'll come back to that constructive rest pose that we started in. We'll feel this shape again. Make any little adjustments that can help support us. So that might be tucking your chin a little bit, just to get a little more length from the back of the head down into the neck. Might be feeling a little more space and width through the back ribs. A little more weight in the back of the hips. If it's comfortable, one hand on your lower belly and one hand back on your chest. And coming back full circle to the breath in your hands. To feeling and trusting your body to breathe for you. Allowing your mind to soften. Putting the thoughts a little more in the background, bringing the breath into the foreground, feeling and noticing, being with your breath. And as you notice your breath, this might be a really nice time for you to add some gratitude practice. As you're breathing in gratitude. As your exhale, releasing into that gratitude. We'll take 5 breaths. So 5 breaths of gratitude and appreciation. You might show gratitude, appreciation for your breathing, for your body, for your strength. And coming back to your experience, feeling your next inhale, feeling your next exhale. And as you notice your present time experience, we'll start to wiggle your fingers and your toes. You might draw your knees into your chest or take a full body stretch. And then as you're ready, we'll slowly roll over to the easiest side and come all the way on up to sitting. Oh, this is my favorite part of class when everyone rolls over and comes up. Thanks, everyone. High fives and namastes. Thank you for your practice. Thanks for being part of our community. Have a wonderful week. Hopefully, I'll see you Friday.